But look, the first thing I'd just say, a brief revision, get away from all that, if I could use that word. I have, as you know, welcomed Craig Kelly onto this program simply because I too have read reams of scientific material on hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin if we're serious about addressing coronavirus, unless we want to live on alarmism. And I was really disappointed with the Treasurer on Tuesday when he opened with an alarmist observation that he was talking about a once-in-a-century pandemic. Now, check the look on Josh's face. The Spanish flu, Josh, lasted from 1918 until 1920. My maths make that 100 years ago. A third of the world's population were infected. There were 4 successive waves at a time when the world's population was 1.8 billion people. The deaths were over 50 million. That's a third of the world's population infected, and 3% died. For coronavirus, 3.3 million people have died, which is sad, but in a world of 7.7 billion, that's 0.42% of the world, not the 3% in the Spanish flu. In other words, 8 times more people died in the Spanish flu. When can we get some sanity? Well, Tucker Carlson, one of America's outstanding broadcasters on Fox News, recently spoke to Professor Peter McCulloch, who is the Vice Chief of Internal Medicine at the Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. He's an international authority on a range of issues in relation to public health, and he's made presentations on the advancement of medicines across the world. He's been an invited lecturer at the New York Academy of Sciences, the National Institutes of Health, the US Food and Drug Administration, and the European Medicines Agency. Tucker Carlson had this conversation with Professor McCulloch.
Tucker, it's worldwide. Something is up. Listen to this. Queensland, Australia, you've probably been there. April, they put on the books as a law. If a doctor attempts to help a patient with COVID-19 with hydroxychloroquine, that doctor will be put in jail for 6 months.
What?
Yes. In April, they put it on the books. Okay.
Why?
Something is up. If you look at the TGA, let's not fry the U.S. agencies. Let's look at the TGA, the FDA equivalent in Australia. And Australia is interesting. They've been kind of spared of COVID-19. They've been in these draconian lockdowns. They have this huge susceptible population. They're all distributed. They've been in fear for 14 months. The TGA has some guidelines for COVID-19. It must have 24 recommendations. Don't use hydroxychloroquine. Don't use ivermectin. Don't use steroids. Don't use anticoagulants. Don't use... They list everything you should not do. It's like, what should you do? And that answer? Nothing.
Wait, okay. So COVID-19 became known to the West in January of 2020. So that was 1 year and 4 months ago. Okay. So how could, with such a short period of time, the health regulators of Australia know to the point where they codified it in a regulation that hydroxychloroquine is not an effective therapy against COVID-19? How could that be known? It couldn't be known, correct?
It couldn't be known, and in fact, there are pieces of the timeline that are suggesting that something is very wrong.
Well, there you are. What's he saying? Something very wrong is going on. I'll tell you what else is wrong, I have to tell you. Craig Kelly has been rubbed out, cancelled for saying what you've just heard. It raises a very simple question. Is Craig Kelly being rubbed out for telling the truth and trying to save people's lives and dismantling alarmism and fear? Now, remember, Craig Kelly has 80,000 followers, has been removed from Facebook for, quote, sharing misinformation about COVID-19, quote, that could lead to imminent physical harm. Nowhere has Craig Kelly been told what that misinformation is. He is merely repeating eminent scientific opinion. And you've just heard Tucker Carlson on American national television talking about that very thing and naming Australia. Should Australians be concerned? Are we being told the truth? Are we, as many are saying, prisoners of the big pharmaceutical companies who are making billions out of coronavirus? What do you think? Email me, alan@skynews.com.au, or the text line